Good morning. Welcome to 4th grade Math Corner. Today we are doing Module 6, Lesson 12. Our learning target is today I will use what I have learned about fraction equivalents to add tenths and hundredths. We are in a new topic today. So today we are going to be adding tenths and hundredths together to find the total. Remember when we were doing fractions, we had learned that in order to add fractions, we have to have like denominators. So if I look at this first problem here, it says 3/10 plus 4/100. So one way that I can represent this is to color in my area model. So in the first area model, I'm going to color in my 3/10. 1, 2, 3. But then I have hundredths, so that means I need to also have hundredths. I could break them all into hundredths, or I could just break this tenth into 10 pieces. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and I need to color in 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice I now have tenths and hundredths. Just like before, we talked about we can't add oranges and apples and call them something. We can't go boys and girls and call them boy-girls. We have to make them the same. So we have to change the units or the name of what we're adding. Instead of apples and oranges, we could say fruit. Instead of boys and girls, we could say kids or students. So now I need to make these 3/10 and 4/100 into like numerators. So what I can do is on a place value chart, if I had 3/10 and 4/100, I could turn each of these tenths into hundredths. So I would need 10 hundredths, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then I need to turn this one into 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I need to turn this one into 10 hundredths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I took these 3/10 and I turned them into 30 hundredths. And I still, up here, have my 4/100. So what I did is I just cut all of my tenths into hundredths. Now I have 30 and 4/100 together would be 34/100. And I would write this as a decimal, as no holes, and 34/100. Remember, we need to make the denominators the same in order to make equivalent fractions. So we could do that on an area model or place value chart. We're also going to try looking at just the fractions. So remember, we talked about making like denominators. So here I noticed that this is 10 and this is 100. I can turn 10 into 100 by cutting them or multiplying them. So I would go 3/10 times cut into something to get 100. Remember, I take my tenths and go 10 cut into 10, so 10 times 10 is going to equal 100. What I do to the bottom, I have to also do to the top up here. So I have to times it by 10. So I would go 3 times 10 is 30. So now, instead of 3/10 over here, now I have 30/100. I add them together. 30 plus 13 equals 43/100. I would go 30 plus 13 equals 43. To write it as a decimal, I would say 0 and 43/100. This could get a little trickier when I have more tenths and hundredths. So let's look at 6/10 plus 57/100 together. When I add them, remember, I have to have like denominators. So I look at my 6/10 and my 57/100, and I can turn my tenths here into hundredths again by timesing them by 10. So I would go 6/10, and I need to get them into hundredths. So 10 times 10 is 100. What I do to the bottom, I also do to the top. 6 times 10 is 60. So here I have 60 hundredths, which is equivalent to 6/10. Now I'm going to add 60 plus 57. Remember, my last name doesn't change, or my denominator. So I have hundredths still. I'm going to go 0 plus 7 is 7. 6 plus 5 is 11. So now I have 117 hundredths. We know that if the top number here is bigger than the bottom number, it is an improper fraction. We cannot leave them that way. What we have to do is we have to take out the wholes. So remember, when the top and the bottom are the same, that's a whole. So if I take out 100 hundredths, that would equal 1 whole. So I'm going to take away the 100 from those 117, and that leaves me 17. So I have now 17 hundredths. When I write this as a fraction, I would say 1 and 17 hundredths. As a decimal, I would say 1 and, with my decimal point, 17, ending here in the hundredths place. On your homework today, it is a lot like this problem set. We just practiced these, so you will see that you can represent it on a place value chart and regroup. Then, on number two down here, you will do the unit form, so 1/10 plus 3 hundredths. You will have to regroup the tenth into hundredths. So for example, 1/10 is 10 hundredths plus 3 hundredths. 10 plus 3 equals 13, so it equals 13 hundredths. You will do that for the rest of them. 5/10 is 50 hundredths plus 12 hundredths. 50 plus 12 equals 62, so it is 62 hundredths, and so on. The second page are fraction equations that you will have to convert the tenths into hundredths. So remember, you would just go, how do you get these tenths into hundredths? You times them by 10. Remember, the nice thing about decimals is that they are always cut into 10 to make a place on the place value chart. So it would be 20 hundredths. Then you are just going to add the 8 hundredths. You would get 28 hundredths. And then write your answer as a decimal, 0 and 28 hundredths. And there's one word problem. Please let us know if you have any questions.